Hello, I'm David Rumelle, and today I'm on my way to interview a lady whom I can only describe as a costume creating miracle and a godsend to so many of us who've had the honour to have our costumes designed and created by her. I first met Pat Moss in 2015, when after 15 years of playing pantomime dame, I desperately needed another designer and maker who could transform my wacky ideas into hard-wearing costumes. I was guided to Pat by the brilliant Nigel Ellicott, and for most of the last 10 years, Pat has created all the new costumes I've required, along with refurbishing and adapting older costumes to ensure their longevity. Pat lives in Shoreham, and it's always a joy to walk over the footbridge to meet her at her lovely home and workshop.
Well, good morning, Pat. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat to me today.
My pleasure.
Do you realise you've been making costumes for me now for 10 years?
Really?
Yes. The first one was Aladdin, Mansfield Palace in 2015. Then there was two Aladdins. There was another at Weston-super-Mare soon after that, and then the Metropole, of course, in Brighton, which we'll maybe touch on. And then that one in Maidenhead for that leisure centre. You did Jack and the Beanstalk at Bognor for me, did Whittington at Epsom, and then last year Glinda. So plus all the alterations you've made for various things. I mean, you really have done a fantastic job for me over the years. But going back to the beginning, what first persuaded you that the theatre world was the one for you?
Well, I suppose I would have been about 3.5, maybe 4 years old, and my father took me to a pantomime somewhere in London, little theatre, and I remember the red plush of the seats and all the gold paint everywhere, and I remember the orchestra striking up, and I was mesmerised. I can't tell you what the panto was, but all I know, I wanted to go on the stage. I'm not sure I knew what that meant, but that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And then later on in years, I suppose I was about 16, so after the war we moved to Burnley, of all places.
Yes.
And I heard that one of the local drama groups, there were two, but one of them was the art school players. And I happened to get to know the lady who'd started it, and her husband was the principal of the art school. And I begged and begged to be allowed to join, but I was too young. Minimum age was 18. But eventually she relented and said I could go along to Friday night meetings, provided I didn't make a nuisance of myself. And Friday night meetings, well, it was like going to drama school, because we read scripts, we studied dialogue, we learnt movement, we learnt all about painting scenery, we made props, we had a wardrobe mistress who ruled us with a rod of iron, and she gave me a skirt that I had to sew colourful braiding on. It all had to be done by hand, because I didn't have a machine. And so that was my first time I walked across a stage, a professional stage, for a drama festival. And all I had to do was flush my eyes at the chauffeur, lift my skirt to show my legs, walk off. And then later on we were doing a play called The Miser, Molière, which I love. And she gave me some bits of material that she cut out, and I had to make an 18th century dress. But I have to say I did learn to sew from the age of 7, because in my time at school we had a piece of cloth given to us, and we had to learn the stitches, all the different stitches. And then at school we had to make all by hand a cookery apron, a pair of pyjamas and a blouse. So you learned how to do the collar. And this was all at different schools that I went to through the war. So I've always sewed, and I remember I did take some evening classes where I learnt how to draft a pattern and fancy needlework. So that's the beginning of it.
Because you did train as an actress, of course.
I did.
Where did you train originally?
Well, When we left Burnley, I mean, my time in Burnley was divided between the art school players, and then I was invited to join the Garrick Club, which had their own wonderful little Victorian theatre in the town, which sadly in the 60s got pulled down. And it was there that I had my first big part, although I was told I was too young, which I was, but the lady who originally cast was seriously ill. And it was a play called The Late Edwina Black.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm playing opposite a man much older than me, and we had to play this love scene. And I remember spending an afternoon with the director and my leading man, and I was taught how to play a proper romantic love scene. After that was dead easy, you know.
What other favourite roles have you played over the years?
Oh gosh, later on, a lot later, we'll come to that.
Yeah.
The Countess in The Mad Woman of Shire.
Right, yes.
But we left Burnley and we came back south because this is where we're from. My hometown was Eastbourne. But we moved back to Harrow area. And of course the first thing I did was to look for a drama group. I'd had no official training by this time. I discovered a little group called the Argosy Players, which I did a couple of plays with them, and then somebody mentioned the Oakletonians, which was formed originally from the boys from the grammar school. And it was one of those plays, somebody mentioned my name, and a lady said, "Oh, the young lady with the Lancashire accent." And I thought, I've got to get rid of this. And so I found in Harrow a teacher of voice production, elocution, call it what you will, Hilary Ford. And I used to go to her on a Monday evening after work. So by this time I was working in fashions at D.H. Evans. So my life's always revolved about fashion at some point. And I was in model evening gowns. And with Hilary Ford, I said it was voice production for the theatre. And she taught me, with all the exercises that I had to do with her, how you get your voice from the stage to the back of the gods without shouting, which I don't think a lot of young people know how to do.
No,
today.
It is a.
Do they?
No, it is an art, and I think it's one of those things that it's very difficult to describe it to someone, but once you've got the knack, you never forget it.
Exactly. So I was working with her for up to 2 years, and at this particular point after Christmas she said, "I really can't teach you anymore. I'm going to put you in for a scholarship to the Guildhall School of Music and Drama." She said, "You won't win, because they come from all over England. There are hundreds of applicants. There are 2 scholarships available and so many people after them. But," she said, "it will round us off." And so for the next 5 months or so, all we worked on was one speech of Isabel's from Ring Round the Moon,
Yes.
which I saw at the Globe Theatre with Claire Bloom playing Isabel.
Yeah.
It's a lovely, lovely play.
So what do you think was the first influence that made you change direction, if you like, into costume design and making, that sort of made that the forefront, shall we say?
I don't really think it was... I don't think it was really anyone... It was one thing. It was a sort of gradual thing, because from Guildhall, which the Lila Cracknell scholarship was only worth £30 a year, so I could only go 1 day a week, which D.H. Evans, where I worked at the time, which was part of Harrods, gave me the extra time that I needed. I went in with, I studied microphone technique and speech with Ambrose Marriott. And there was a Shakespeare class which was a bit chaotic with Rex Walters, and a movement class with Joe Wildblood. That was very good. But it was about that time that I saw this advert in the stage for a student in the original production of Look Back in Anger at the Royal Court, Sloane Square. So I went along, I wrote, and I met George Devine, and I was offered the job of understudy at ASM in Look Back in Anger, and it was £1 a week. And without thinking, I said no. How stupid is that? So then, a few weeks later, I saw this advert again in the stage for a student in Rep at Warrington. And I got that job, and I was up there for the season. So I suppose it was a gradual thing, because as you know, in Rep at that time, you supplied your own wardrobe. And if you hadn't got anything, well, in my case, I would sort of get some material and throw something together. But I think the things of making costumes came much later, sometime into the 1960s, with Wick Theatre Company. We'd moved to Southwick by this time, and whatever plays we were doing 1 or 2 period plays, and I sort of helped on the costumes purely because I could sew. And so it was no conscious thing that this was what I was going to do. It was a very gradual movement.
Yes.
And for quite a few years, whenever they had a period play of any sort, I would get involved with the costumes. And then it was round about the early 80s. My husband had just died, and I didn't know what I was going to do. My friends pulled me back into theatre, and I got to know George Rawlings, who was then county drama advisor. Now, he had been a professional actor and still did voiceovers, and he used to put on one big play a year, and it was called County Players. And he was brilliant at manipulating big crowds. And so this year, he was going to do Oh, What a Lovely War. So this was 1982, the year of the Falklands. Now, with Wick Theatre Company, I had made costumes for Oh, What a Lovely War. We did a short version for a festival, and then we did the full-length festival, and I designed our costumes. And so I said to George, would he like me to help? And I got the whole job. And he wanted to dress it as per the film.
Yes.
So you had the Pierrot costumes, but you also had the period costumes.
Yes.
For the different speciality numbers. And I worked with him, the County Players, for the next 3 years, I think, until it disbanded. It happened no more. And that was very interesting, because you were working with people from teenagers up to in their 70s and 80s. And we used to work at Lodge Hill. Now, this is another extension of a drama school, really, because Lodge Hill in Sussex, he would organise for various local amateur groups to go up there. We'd arrive late Friday afternoon, have supper, and then Saturday and Sunday until tea time, we had lessons in theatre, basically. And that was very interesting. Sometimes you'd get a little scene that 3 or 4 of you would go off and have to work on it and learn it. And it was a couple of years after this that I heard about a man called Roy Grant.
Oh, yes.
who at that time, well, again, he had been a professional actor, but gave up in his early 30s because he hadn't made the grade. And he and his partner, they opened up bed and breakfast in London after the war. And by the time I knew him, they had moved down to Arundel, and they also lived in Brighton in the winter. But I contacted him and said I could make costumes, would he like some help? And again, it fell to my lot to make the costumes in 1984 for Five At, which is the story of Elizabeth Tudor, Mary Queen of Scots, who, as we know, they never met.
Yes.
And it's that story. Now, I've never made Elizabethan costumes before, but I found reference books. I went to portrait galleries and studied costumes. I started with just 2 or 3 books, but now, as you see, it's all my reference books. And I have got 1 or 2 photographs of those early costumes. And we used to put on our shows at the Wildflower Trust in Arundel. We were part of the Arundel Festival. Now, most of our actors came from Brighton Little Theatre. Some had trained, some had worked professionally. And of course, with Roy Grant, there was no messing about. And it would be very interesting, the first technique rehearsal, because at the Wildflower Trust, we had to build a stage. Then you build your set. Then they built a tower for the lighting man and the sound man to go up. And always at some point during this evening, and it happened every year, there would be dead silence, there'd be a furious row, and the lighting man was threatening to remove all his equipment. And then Roy would call, "Patricia!" I think, God, what have I done wrong? Calm down. No, we did some amazing plays with Five At, Little Night Music.
Oh, wonderful.
Molière, the prodigious snob.
Right.
Where you've got this this man who's made money and he's a snob. 72 Masters. Now that is a wonderful play, Commedia dell'arte. And I had first come across this way back with the art school players, where we did a production of it. That's where we learned how to make all these traditional masks. With Roy, because he was a great showman, the masks, the opening of the play was just a series of arches for all the principal characters. And we had all these grotesque masks, and I had to make enormous cloaks to cover their costumes. It was an amazing company. We did Beckett, and when we did Beckett, I learned all things ecclesiastical, and it wasn't for that show. I'm changing the subject now. I did some amazing work in Chichester Cathedral with a lady called Mary Scott, who created Focus on Drama. It was the year of Bishop Bell's centenary that we did excerpts from 3 different things. And one of them was an excerpt from Murder in the Cathedral. And Mary spoke to the people in charge there, and I was allowed to have a look at the various robes that the clergy wore. And there was 3 of them all set out for me to study at my leisure, which was very good to see how they were made.
Yes.
And the weight and all the rest of it. And we had a gentleman, Sidney Hogg, who the women of Canterbury have these verses, as you know. And so there were 4 of us, I was one of them. And our speeches, instead of doing the whole speech, she said one word, she said the next person, So it was one person each
Per
per word,
good heavens. All in quick succession.
all in quick succession.
Mm.
And I mean, before we went on
That's clever.
stage, he made us work on our voices to get our voices as they should be.
Yeah.
And we all came from different parts of the cathedral together
Yeah.
to do, and it was amazing. It was as though
how wonderful.
it was one person
Yes.
speaking.
Yeah. That's clever.
It was clever.
And the trust you must have had to put in each other to make it work.
Yeah, and we didn't make a single mistake.
Yeah.
So going back to Roy Grant,
Yeah.
so for 8 years, it was lovely to be able to work with a director like him, because it was the festival finished at the end of August. So by late September, he had decided what he was going to do next year. And every Friday morning we would meet at their house in Brighton for coffee and to discuss the next year's play. So that's virtually almost 11 months ahead.
Yes.
And he would work out the beginning of it and the ending of it. And then come May, he would cast, and he would come over to my place, and we would sit down and work out the costumes and how it was going to be costumed. Now, in my early days of making costumes, I have to say, being very naive, it was a case of jumble sales.
Yeah.
And I used to find amazing fabrics at jumble sales, curtains and things. But then, as time went on, and I was being asked to dress shows like Annie Get Your Gun, Oklahoma, that sort of thing, I realised I've got to go for different fabrics.
Yes.
And so I used to drive up to London, to Whitechapel, on a Sunday morning, and go down Brick Lane. And Brick Lane, there was one shop open for a company called MP Fabrics, and you went across the road to Fashion Street, and they had a warehouse over there. They've since now moved to White Hart Lane, where they have about 50,000 square feet of fabrics, going up 5 layers.
Yeah.
It's a wholesale warehouse, and you have to buy a minimum of 10 metres of anything,
Yes.
which is not a problem.
Yeah.
And so for years, I then started going up there to find the fabrics, and if you could poke around the corners, you'd probably find something that had been forgotten by somebody.
Yes.
And that was very good. And I still buy the odd thing from him if I need it. I bought fabric last year from them.
I mean, if you had to narrow down the type of costumes, I mean, this really is difficult. If you had to narrow down the type or era or periods you most enjoy making, what do you reckon that would be?
18th century Edwardian. I love the Tudors. They're very big, heavy costumes. And it was only later in life that, quite by chance, I wrote to E&B, Pantomime Productions.
Yes.
I don't know why I did. I just did. This is me.
Would that have been Paul Elliott at the time?
Paul Elliott.
Yes.
I've always just written to people and said, can I help?
Yeah.
So, in my innocence, not knowing anything about the company, I wrote and said, I make costumes. Could I help? And I get a phone call. No, we don't. We have our own people who make costumes. But would you like to be wardrobe mistress for our pantomime at the Theatre Royal at Brighton?
Ah.
So I thought, don't say no this time. Yes, please. And so I worked for Paul Elliott for 6 years.
And who was the designer on that? Was that Terry Parsons? Or?
I think he's done some of them, but do you know what? I've never kept a programme. I've kept the posters.
Yeah.
So the first pantomime I did was Jack and the Beanstalk with Annika Rice and Barry Howard, Maurice Colburn,
Yes.
and Seb Craig, who was company manager. And I became very friendly with Barry. He helped me. He asked me to help do some adjustments to one or two of his costumes. I got chatting to him, and it's really, I think, through him that I started to get interested in dames' costumes.
Right.
I'd never thought about it before, because when my children were small, I used to take them to a children's play,
Yes.
not a pantomime.
Yeah.
quite different.
Well, yes, the very first thing I saw in the theatre was a play as opposed to panto, and I regret not seeing some of the greats at that time.
Me too. I don't know why, but it was just one of those things.
Yeah.
And I remember Barry saying to me, you don't have to buy expensive material. It's what you do with it. And I mean, as you know, his costumes were amazing.
Yes.
Absolutely amazing.
Yes, lovely man.
And it was because of that pantomime that Seb Craig phoned me in the following summer and said that he was going to play Dame at, I think it was Rickmansworth, Aladdin, and would I make his costumes? And I said, I've never made Dame's costumes before. So he said, well, we'll come down and talk. And I've got his workbook, so I've got it here.
Ah, right.
And Seb would design his costumes, and he and his wife would do their own shopping.
Or did he do the drawings, or
He
did
did
you?
the drawings. These are all his work. Now that was in, I remember it vividly. He bought a yellow and black cotton fabric, a wide stripe and a narrow stripe, and my eyes by the end of it were crossed. So that's all done on hoops, different size hoops. There's his nurse's dress. Oh, that was the negligee. This is a bottle dress, and I've just made one again this year. So that's the base colour with these appliques on the top. In the end, he had the design of Bowles. You know Bowles Gin?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And his hat maker, his headdress maker in London, she had made like a cork with bubbles coming out.
Yeah.
And his gag was, I'm a bottle, I'm a blue bottle. Now this costume, all the way down the sides, was Velcro. And there was a hole there. The inside, he could put a little hot water bottle thing.
Okay.
So somebody could pour water in there.
Right.
And it would go in. And the thing was, with this costume, the whole lot could be ripped off.
Yes.
I don't think it ever was, but it was not easy. Not easy to do.
Beautiful designs.
Oh, that's the one I showed you the photograph of.
Ah, yes.
So you can see it was the jersey cloth.
I mean, we've answered quite a few questions here. Any more memorable experience as an artist you've worked with, like Seb or Barry? You've worked with so many over the years.
It's quite interesting, this. There was one lady who, she should have known better. She was 40s, 50s. And there was a very young girl who had never been in Wreck, but a little touring production of Salad Days over at the Connaught at Worthing. But the one, it was in the first pantomime at the Royal, with Jack and the Beanstalk. Annika was such a lovely lady to work with. No problem at all. But this lady was playing, not the fairy, meant to be the juvenile. And one night as I was walking past, because as wardrobe mistress, as you know, I do the washing for costumes.
Yes.
Only for costumes.
Yes.
And as I called out good night, she said, my washing's down there. So I looked. It was her own bra, her knickers and her tights. And I said, I am not your maid. You do your own washing. I walked on. There, and this other young girl, she said to me, oh, will you wash my tights for me, Pat? And I said, no. And the lady sharing the dressing room with her, when she got out, she said, I wouldn't dare ask you to do that. And she went to ask Kerry, and I said, Kerry, you are not to do it.
Well, quite. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, at the end of a show, just rinsing a pair of tights in the basin. I mean, we all do it. Sometimes we do it back at the digs. I mean, when you go to the theatre these days, I mean, you told me earlier you went to see Top Hat. Costumes are under your scrutiny.
Yes.
What do you look for in every show you see? What have you got that sort of subconscious eye for?
Well, then it should be correct for the period,
Yeah.
for a start, the thing. I mean, Top Hat at Chichester, they couldn't put a foot wrong.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. And the girl dancers they had chosen were just to perfection. It was absolutely good. I saw 2 plays at the National because up until COVID, I used to go up to London to the National Theatre 4 or 5 times a year.
Mm.
And as the friends I went with, we all said, whatever you see at the National, whether you like it or you don't like it, there is always something good in that production that will catch your eye. And I think it was Rory Kinnear. I can't tell you what the play was, but I know that he was wearing a cream-coloured suit. And I go to the National a year, 18 months later, to see another play in which he is in.
Right.
And he's wearing the same suit.
Right.
But only me. The thing with Downton Abbey, which maybe people will say I'm wrong, I don't know. Gentlemen of the period, white tie and tails. But you don't see the butler in white tie and tails. The butler would have a black tie.
Yes.
And a black waistcoat.
Yes.
In Downton Abbey, if you ever look at it again, you will see the butler in white tie and tails.
Oh, that is odd, yes.
And the other thing, you see it a lot on television with period plays, especially Pride and Prejudice, anything of that era, ladies' evening gloves should come above the elbow. And I've seen period plays on television where evening gloves have been halfway to the elbow, very few above the elbow, and they can be bought. I mean, you don't have to buy the beautiful gloves of the period. You could get away with a jersey fabric,
yes,
which will look just as good on stage.
Yeah.
So I think when we did Amadeus at Arundel, this was with the Arundel Players, and they have their own theatre, which is quite small. And on a small stage, you've then got to work out your colour schemes very carefully. So we have the two characters in the beginning, the Whisperers, who are...
Oh, the Vented, yes.
The Venticelli.
Yes.
And they were both in black. What Mike Wells did was lovely. He had that cast on that stage as the house opened. So they're all there motionless. Made a good picture. So I had worked out all my main characters, but then you have about 3 characters, important parts, but small. And I thought, you can't keep putting them into different colours. And so in the end, I chose a lovely deep burgundy, and the 3 of them were all in burgundy, but each was a different fabric.
Right.
And there were different trims on them. So they were part of a little group at the back, which was quite interesting. If I'd have put them all into different colours, I think it wouldn't have worked. You've got to think about it very carefully. I once attended a series of lectures by Janet Arnold, and she's written several books on costume, of which I've got 4 of her main books here. She said, you know, you need to go to portrait galleries and look at the paintings and look at how they've the folds of the fabric have gone. And so when she had a break and everybody shot off to the kitchen to make a cup of coffee, I, being me, went up to Janet and said, would you like a cup of tea or coffee? Yes, please. I'll go and make you one. So then I chatted to her privately on my own. And at that time, the ABTT, Association of British Theatrical whatever, they were doing a series of courses, and one of them was making 18th century coats, which I attended. It was a weekend. I think it was a Saturday and a Sunday, and when we arrived, there were masses of the Stockwell mannequins and bolts of calico, and we were told to make a pattern of an 18th century coat. Fortunately, in my head I had measurements of somebody, and I chose to make the early 18th century coat, which is very full skirted, and it's got the pleats there. So we had to make this, cut it out, draw it, cut it out, and get it all pinned. I used that pattern for years. I've still got a bit of it, something's lost somewhere. They also did, so I did the coat making, I did the millinery course, but that was not for me, and the tutor said, "Oh, I can't teach you too much, it might affect my business." The one I would have liked to have done, but there wasn't time for it, it sort of all fizzled out, was corset making. But I have since made corsets, because whenever I have done a period play, working with Bright Little Theatre, Roy Grant and Arundel, everywhere, mostly when one of the plays we did for the festival was called Right Honourable Gentleman, and it was about a man called Charles Dilke. True, this is based on a true story, who could have become Prime Minister, but for the usual scandal with a lady. And that would have been 1880s, 1890s. It was the time of the bustles. But Roy and I decided, because the front row where people sat on the stage was about 3 foot apart, and we thought people don't want to see these enormous bustles right in front of your eyes.
Yes.
So we took it a few years later, where you have the lovely big sleeves of the Edwardians and the flat front and all the pleating at the back. And so that was amazing. And I'd bought some material I'd bought up in the market in Halifax, of all places. I just happened to see it there. I remember somebody coming up to us afterwards and saying, "Do you realise you've dressed this play completely at the wrong period?" We said, "Yes, we do, but it's what we wanted."
Yes.
For the main character, Sir Charles, I happened to have a beautiful piece of best quality Huddersfield worsted that had been given to me by a retired Savile Row tailor. And you know, with good fabric, you really can work. I'm not a tailor, but I have that coat. I made that coat. It looked superb. I still have it. I will not part with it under any circumstances.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, she came up to me. She said, "It's a very nice coat, Pat. What a pity you couldn't have afforded a better quality fabric." So I then said to her, "Where did it come from?" I said, "And you and I could not afford to buy that material today."
Yes.
And that shut her up.
I mean, you've dressed and worked backstage for so many productions. A dresser is vital for an actor's performance. You know, we put our trust in our dresser if we're lucky enough to have them. I mean, these days in panto, it's just a case of roping in who's free. But how do you think an actor should respect that discipline from his dresser?
An actor should be nice and polite to their dresser and not treat them as a slave.
Yes.
Because they're not a slave, they're there to help you. And quite frankly, especially with pantomime days, and especially those who've got their own wardrobe, where you're into 12, 14 costumes during a show, you've got to have faith in your dresser. Now, me as a dresser, I'm working for Paul Elliott for 6 years. Not only was I wardrobe mistress, but I was dresser.
Yes.
And I dressed the dames. The girl dancers were happy to look after themselves. And it was a case of, I might be untidy in my workroom, but put me in a dressing room and nothing is out of place. Every costume is lined up in the order in which they're needed, and I make sure that their dressing table, everything is where it should be. I won't name names. I have one lovely actor who's a right messy little gentleman, and he was always losing the glue for the eyelashes.
Oh yes.
So I always kept a spare bit in my pocket.
Was that Copydex?
No, it was a little tube.
Oh yes.
Proper eyelash glue.
Yeah.
And the other thing as a dresser, I always had on my waistband of my trousers was a string of safety pins. And whichever theatre I was working in, either side on the black curtains, I would put a string of safety pins either side. So if there was an emergency, we could grab them. And I always made sure if we had changes, not in the dressing room, maybe we'd have a change at the side of the stage somewhere, that the costumes were all there in the right place. Like yourself, David, you have all your hoops sewn into the costumes.
Yes.
Which makes life so easy.
I think you have to.
My friend Nick Wilton, he has a very good hoop, but he only has the one hoop.
Right.
And I've said to him when we've been doing fittings, why don't you do what David does? But he's happy, and for him it works.
Yes.
But it is more difficult if you've got one hoop getting the costume on
Yes.
and off.
And so that it doesn't show underneath.
Yeah. Whereas if your hoop is stitched into your costume, when you've got a quick change, you undo the zip, you let the garment fall to the floor, you step out of it, there's another garment sitting on the floor, and you pull it up and you zip up.
Yes.
And
Well, that was the godsend for Glinda last year, because Stuart didn't want the hoop sewed in, but I said, it's such heavy fabric, it must be. I'm so glad we went ahead with this, because I had to do a change on my own. Someone did the zip for me, but I had to work out the change myself for that. Without that hoop stitched in, we'd have never have...
You'd never have done it.
No, but we took it up to Stornoway and the hoop was removed to his specification, but, you know, it served its purpose in focus.
I mean, it's only stitched in by hand. It's easy enough to take out. There was a company that took all the hoops out at the end of the season. They sent the dame's costumes to the dry cleaners with the hoops still in. And the dry cleaner removed the hooping wire, which got lost. So the next season they had to go and buy all
new hoops.
And some of them I had hooping wire here and could redo it. But I had one occasion where I had this actor who had to fly on stage at about 3-4 feet off the ground. Not Peter Pan or anything. It was a silly joke. And you had to get him into the harness. And he decided to show off in front of the children that were standing there and making them laugh. And in the end, I just told him off. I said, stand still, do as you're told, and stop behaving like this. And I fastened it up. In the dressing room, he did apologise. He said, I'm so sorry, I was out of order. I said, well, if I couldn't have done that buckle up properly, you could have fallen and hurt yourself.
Yes.
You see,
flying harnesses. I wore one for Jack the Beanstalk at Bognor. And I had to wear it under the opening to Act 2, and it did dig in my back. But you know, you
did you fly at Bognor?
Yes, I went up as a Wonder Woman. Do you remember in the with the sparks flying out?
Yes.
That was a bit scary. I mean, if anyone is considering a career in costume design and making, how would you advise them to start these days? Because all the opportunities we had, they're few and far between.
It's not easy. I think you had to have grown up with being in fashion.
Yeah.
Interested in fashion in some way or another. Whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter. I think you must learn to sew, because if you can't sew, if you do a drawing, you must know how somebody can cut that out and make it. I don't know whether any of them know anything about pattern making. But the other thing is, don't think you're going to make a lot of money, because you're not. You'll never make a fortune doing this. You do it not to want to be famous or anything, but because you love doing it.
Yes.
And you put your heart and soul into it, basically. I mean, I don't go on stage anymore. My costumes do that for me.
And it's a great tribute to wear an item that you've made, and it fits so beautifully, and it lights well on stage. You know, it's a very special thing.
I watch The Great Sewing Bee, which I absolutely love, and I admire all the people that have ever taken part in it. And I cannot do half of what they do. I mean, they're using machines that I couldn't dream of. I've got an old Singer industrial machine here. I have an overlocker. I have an iron, which used to be one that you had the heat from the top, you had the steam coming up from the bottom, but that doesn't work anymore. But the iron still does. Yeah. But it's when they come to make something out of the rag bag, and they have an hour and a half to do it. I can't. that you're seeing looking at there, I've had that bundles of material sitting in my office for months. I pulled this lot out about 6 or 7 weeks ago, and I still stand there looking at it thinking, what can I do with it? What can I do with it? And then suddenly the thought comes into my head, yes, okay, that's all right. But I can't do it in an hour and a half, so I do admire them, greatly, but the thing is, museums can be a great help. And a lot of museums have got maybe a small collection of costumes on display, which you can go and look at like that.
Yes.
Or you can go like I do, and when did I go? A couple of years back to Kensington Palace. There was an exhibition of court clothes through the ages. There was other things worn for special events, but they were showing costumes, clothing of all different periods. The 18th century there was great. The V&A have always got a permanent exhibition that you can just wander around. It doesn't cost you anything.
Yes.
If you are seriously considering making something, like I did when I first started, I contacted Worthing Museum and said I was making costumes for Pride and Prejudice. Had they got anything I could look at? And I made an appointment and I went across. They pulled out a whole collection of costumes that I could handle,
Yes.
examine how it was made. There was something in a box. They said, have a look at that, but don't touch it. It's very fragile.
Yeah.
And they had loads of books I could look at. So they were very helpful, as was Hereford Museum. I think I went there, saw my travels around England, looking at Edwardian stuff, and they had pulled out a lot. The only people that weren't helpful were Platt Hall in Manchester. And the lady, such hard work getting 3 costumes out. And she stood behind me, and a man sat in front of me with a mirror,
Yes.
so he could watch me. Because I realised when you're looking at these costumes, you want to make notes.
Yes.
So you don't use a pen, you use a pencil.
Yes.
And I had my tape measure, and I was measuring costumes and taking notes, and she was watching every movement that I was making. And then she said, oh, we're closing for lunch now, are you coming back? I said, I'm not coming back after lunch.
Yes.
They were so unhelpful.
Yeah.
And all the other museums I've ever been to, where I've looked at stuff behind the scenes, they've left me to it.
Yes.
But I felt, oh dear, this is a horrid, horrid feeling. But that's what you've got to do. You've got to look around. Libraries, I don't know if they do have now. Years ago, they used to have quite a few books on costumes that you could borrow, and which I did. And then I started going around the charity shops, and of course one of my favourite bookshops is Camilla's in Eastbourne, by the town hall.
Oh, yes.
In Grove Road. And downstairs in the basement they've got a big section for theatre. And well, over the years I've built up this amazing collection. I have one book there which is my Bible for ladies' wear. The English Woman's Costume Guide to the Present Century, that I found in a charity shop. So when I was doing Man for All Seasons, this was my Bible, and it's got everything in it. So, you know, you can see how I've worked with it.
What are your favourite fabrics to work with, would you say? Do you have a particular favourite fabric?
Yeah, I like working with all the brocades,
Yeah.
silks, cottons. I don't want to work on chiffon.
No.
I've worked with Roger Redfarm,
Yes.
as you know, in his heyday.
Did Roger used to run Plymouth, am I right, or...?
Coventry.
Oh, right, yes.
Coventry. But Roger, as you know, in his day, was a director all over the world.
Yes.
Basically. And I first met him at Arundel Players when we were going to do Privates on Parade.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, I had done Privates on Parade at Brighton Little Theatre.
Yes.
At Arundel it was slightly different. It was a bit more discreet, shall we say.
Because there's only one lady in the show, isn't there?
That's right.
Yeah.
And we had all the boys lined up in front of her, and the boy said, drop your towels. And she said, I kept my eyes firmly on the ceiling. At the back there. It was a little bit more, you know, open, shall we say, at Brighton. And Arundel was discreet. So that's where I first met Roger. And he's retired by this time. But he was putting together a group of people in Chichester, again, who had been trained, had worked professionally, or were just very good.
Yes.
You know, it was Greg Moss, husband of Kate Moss, the author, and he was a journalist, and he had written this play about the buses in the First World War, going to the trenches. We did it on the stage at Bognor, second time round. So that, of course, was 1914, 1916 style costumes. I hired all the military wear from Lionel Digby in Torquay. Flame Torquay, it was called. Lionel was brilliant. I mean, he understood his military wear. Even to the stage when I was doing Journey's End at Arundel. He said, "What regiment?" I said, "It's not mentioned."
No.
Now, if it had been the regiment, they would have had the correct flashes.
Yes.
I said, "It's not mentioned in the script." So we would have got, for Privates on Parade, all the military wear from him, everything. And then, I think it was a play about... We did this at the theatre at Chichester College, that's it. Some murder that had taken place in the countryside in the 1920s around the Chichester area. And we had a group of young girls who were studying drama at Chichester College, taking all the main parts. And that, again, was 1920s, did all the costumes there. Now, this is interesting. There was one girl who couldn't make it, the meeting where I was there to take all the measurements. And I like to take the measurements myself.
Yes. And new each time? New measurements each time you work with an artist?
Yes.
Yes.
I check them every time.
Yeah.
And so I said to the lady who was Roger's assistant, shall we say, on the secretarial side, could you measure her and send me the measurements? Which she did. Gosh, it was sheer luck. I had only tucked it together and left large chunks either side, because 1920s dresses, and because they were ordinary poor people, straight up and down, I had to let the whole thing out.
So?
Instead of being about a 34 bust, she was a 38 bust.
Right.
So I don't know where the measurements were taken. But anyway, I remember sitting there at a rehearsal waiting to grab people for fittings, watching through one particular scene, and at the end of it, Roger then spoke very quietly, very calmly, very nicely, explaining how they should approach this scene, and what was the meaning of it, what was behind it. And I thought, you don't know how lucky you are. You're listening to a masterclass here.
Yes.
And the girls didn't like him because he told them off. He shouted at them. And I suppose in class their tutor would have said, there dear, don't worry, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
They weren't used to being told off as professional actors. So it was quite interesting. I like work. Oh, the last thing I did with Roger was great. It was about the Hawkhouse gang.
Right.
Heard of them?
Were they smugglers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Smugglers, murderers, not very nice people. Came from Kent.
Yeah.
Right down to Portsmouth. I got the book. You see, now this is something. If you're doing costumes, you've got to read the script. You've worked out who's related to whom. I mean, you do this as an actor.
Yes.
If you're in a play.
Yeah.
What do they know about me? What are they saying about me? So you have to do this with your costumes as well. What's the relationship of this person to that person? What's their background? And so the Hawkhouse gang, I realised that their clothes were basically all rags and tatters and things. So I put together this amazing collection for everybody. I hired the two 18th century military outfits from Brian, and Brian is brilliant at distressing. So I made the costumes, and he came over here and spent a whole day distressing them. So they looked absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Because that's what they were. I mean, they'd murdered some poor chap and chucked him down the well. And all this is in the book.
Yes.
So before I started making the costume, I read the history of those people. As somebody who makes costumes, I think that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Panto is just fun.
Yes.
Panto is, I'm talking about classical theatre.
Yes. Yeah.
Man for All Seasons, Amadeus, this sort of thing. You've got to go behind the history. What were the people's lives at that time?
Yes.
All the rest of it.
It's been absolutely wonderful, Pat. Thank you for sharing all these wonderful memories, and I sincerely hope you have many more years of making for us all.
I hope so too. I'm not giving up yet.
Good, that's what
Do you
we
know
want
what?
to
That's
hear.
what keeps... People say to me, are you still making costumes? And I say, well, yes, why not? What else would I do? Sit and look at four walls?
We mentioned Ring Around the Moon and the speech you gave.
It was at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London.
Yeah.
And there were 2 scholarships available for drama, and my teacher Hilary Ford put me in, and her comment was, you won't win, because they come from all over the country, but it just rounds us off.
Yes.
And so I got there at the appointed time, or just before, and as I go downstairs to the green room, the porter calls out, Miss Dodsworth, and I said, yes, you're on stage.
So these 2 photographs, could you tell me a little bit more about these? They're from Ring Around the Moon, obviously.
Yes, Ring Around the Moon, where I'm playing Lady India.
Yes.
And she and her partner Patrice, they come in their first entrance dancing the tango. I'm not a dancer, but on each occasion I have been taught by a very good teacher. And I first played Lady India sometime in the 1950s. So you will see 2 photographs of me then in the costumes that were made for me at that time. And then 25 years later, I had the opportunity to play Lady India again. And this time I was taught the tango by a very well-known local lady, Dinky Flowers, who in her day has been a dancer in some amazing shows. And you will see the style of the costumes, the style of the dance, completely different.
Yes.
And yes, it was lovely to play it twice.
Second time round.
Second time round, yes. Isabel, she's a young dancer, and she has been brought in to become the centre of interest. My notes are here from the original time. She has to become the centre of interest at this party, and it must revolve around her. And it says, just to be yourself. And it starts off, she has a fight with Lady Diana, and then she stands up and she says, well, you've had your little bit of fun, so on.
So let us hear it.
Well, are you satisfied now? Don't you think you've had a great success? You wanted entertainment, and no one can now say you haven't had it. How is this for your scandal? You stood up on your chair and told them who I was. Well, if you haven't yet, you have no need to. I'm going to show myself to them, looking as I am, a common little slut, as this lady called me. You can watch your bit of fun and get funnier. They'll have no doubts about me now. They'll know exactly where I come from. Do you want me to tell you the climax of the ball? Well, to begin with, I insult my mother. I pluck her feathers in front of them all, and I take her away, back to her piano lessons. Down the wind goes the Countess Runella. Her father sold wallpaper. He carried the rolls on his back and a paste pot in his hand. They used to give him 5 francs a time, which kept him happy, because it meant he could buy himself a drink without telling his wife. That's the poor for you. You wanted to play with them tonight because you were bored, but you'll see what a mistake it was, and how right your nurses were when you were told, and told you not to play with the common children in the park. They don't know how to play, and I haven't played for one moment since I came here. I've been unhappy. Isn't that vulgar of me? I've been unhappy. And all because you didn't understand or wouldn't understand that I love you. It is because I love you that I've done my very best to dazzle them this evening. It's because I love you that I've pretended to love your brother. It's because I love you that I was ready to throw myself in the lake like a baby and a fool to finish it all. If I hadn't loved you, I loved you from the moment we met. Do you think I should have agreed to be in your mad puppet show? Well, would you say something? It's tiresome, of course, this poor girl standing here saying she loves you. But please, say something.